Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you paint effects. So starting with a new scene, let's create a plane and let's press F to zoom in, and let's go in and adjust our plane to maybe like 5 by 5, and let's give it 64 by 64 subdivisions. So now let's go to under Windows, let's go to General Editor's Visor, and you'll see a tab called Paint Effects. In this case, it was the first one that was opened. But let's go and leave it on Paint Effects, and now we have this whole series of 3D paint brushes, 3D brushes that instead of painting strokes of paint, they actually distribute like 3D objects on in a given scene. So I think we can browse to what's something that's interesting. Like these vines. So if we go down to plants and maybe leafy vine, I'm going to double click that and minimize the window. And so now you see my cursor has turned into a pencil, and all you do is click and drag on your surface, or actually not even on the surface, anywhere in the scene. And as you click and drag, you can see these plants start deploying themselves onto any sort of surface. So it's really as simple as that. We can press delete, and I can show you a few more. If we go to Window, General Editors, Visor, what else is interesting? There's food, which is kind of funny, like hamburgers. Oh, that's ground beef. I actually think there's one with just hamburgers on it. Yeah, this one with lettuce. And so you can click and drag and create little hamburgers all over your scene. Honestly, the ones I tend to use the most are plants, like grass or trees. They're very come in handy a lot when I'm rendering out architectural scenes. So we can take a look at this. And now, one thing to note is these things actually, when you render them, if I go to my render settings on Mental Ray, if I just click render, these won't actually show up when you click render. So there's nothing there. They will render, however, if you switch to Maya software, so they'll show up here, like that. So one trick is to actually, if you want to use Mental Ray, like I showed you before in the previous videos, you can, follow your normal scene setup like before, but when you deploy these paint effects objects, we have to. So let's switch it back to Mental Ray real quick. And so it's one small thing that we have to do is we select. Let's select two of these shrubs, and we go to modify, convert, and we'll convert paint effects to polygons. And let's go to options here. And this limit is kind of high. I'll do 50,000 just in case, and convert. And you can see that it actually converted it to polygons. And so when I render now in Mental Ray, only those two will show up. And so you have to be kind of careful about this, where you don't want to, depending on how heavy your scene is, maybe you want to convert a few of them at a time. And then you incrementally add them as you go. The other option is to perhaps render the scene twice. Once in Maya software and once in Mental Ray, and then combine the two in Photoshop, in addition to using rendering passes that I showed you in a previous video. But for the most part, that's Paint Effects. I didn't nearly go through all the options that are associated with this, but there's literally hundreds of different brushes. And you can see there's like 30 grasses alone. And so you can go in and really quickly create a landscape scene, any sort of landscape out a window. These are super handy to do things like that. Like any object, if you select it and go into your attribute editor, there's plenty of parameters for each of these brushes. In this case, there's sample density, your random seed. If you go into your grass, wind, narrow 6, the next tab over, you can adjust the scale, the brush width, say the size of the blades of grass, the density, twisting on the grass. And by default, I believe this grass is also animated. If you press play on the timeline here, you can see it slowly waving in the wind. So I definitely encourage you to open the visor back up and check out some of these weird and wonderful Paint Effects brushes. Like, you could browse around these eyeballs here. A lot of them you have to use from more of a top view. You sort of click and drag and sketch on the scene. You get these eyeballs. And remember that to render them correctly with Mental Ray, we have to go to Modify, Convert Paint Effects to polygons. Those took a while. Polylimit exceeded. Okay, so it actually didn't create all the complete eyeballs, so it stopped where it exceeded the number. And if you click render, the only eyeballs and the shrubs that I converted will appear. So that's Paint Effects. Hopefully you should be able to use this in conjunction with some of the other modeling, rendering, sculpting, lighting tools to create any sort of creative designs that you want to in Maya.